All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Abby Beho, and I am the program director at Lake Health and Wellbeing. And we're a public health NGO based in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it really is a pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar today, which is a partnership with the Nevis Department of Gender Affairs. And at this juncture, I would like to recognize Honorable Jahnel Nisbett, who's the Minister with responsibility for health, gender affairs, and social empowerment at the Nevis Island Administration. And I'd also just like to recognize our colleagues from the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the Department of Gender Affairs in Nevis and St. Kitts, and all the valued colleagues and partners locally and regionally who've joined us today. So thank you so much. So this webinar is being organized in recognition of Menstrual Hygiene Day. And Menstrual Hygiene Day provides us with an opportunity to bring global attention to a topic that has historically been overlooked and often discussed only in whispers in dark places. So we're very happy to be able to put the spotlight on menstrual health today. So as we know, because of this sort of this issue being overlooked and sort of stigmatized, and there's a lot of embarrassment around it, some of the key health and psychosocial challenges related to menstrual health have remained unaddressed for many women and girls, leaving many to navigate their experience in silence. And we really want to change this. So through our menstrual health education program, which is a multi-sectorial collaboration between ourselves, the Department of Gender Affairs, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, WASH United, the Advancement of Children's Foundation, Women's Haven, and other partners, we are trying to ensure that women, girls, men, and boys have easy access to accurate, reliable information about menstrual health, and that women and girls have access to the support that they need to manage their menstrual health. So in today's session, we want to explore how we can better support women and girls in all spheres of life, and in doing so, help create a period-friendly society. So before I move on, I just wanted to provide a definition for menstrual health, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And this definition for menstrual health has been developed by the Global Menstrual Collective. And they define menstrual health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity in relation to the menstrual cycle. And so what they say is that achieving menstrual health implies that women, girls, and all other people who experience a menstrual cycle throughout their life course are able to access accurate, timely, appropriate information, are able to care for their bodies during menstruation, menstruation, can access timely diagnosis, treatment, and care for menstrual cycle-related discomforts and disorders, and can experience a positive and respectful environment in relation to their menstrual cycle. And finally, they can decide whether and how to participate in all spheres of life during all phases of their menstrual cycle. So with that definition provided, I'd just like to then proceed and let you know a bit more about this event today. So today have a really good agenda for you, we believe. So we're going to start off with some opening remarks from Honorable Jahnel Nisbett. We'll then move on to introductory remarks from Saris Hendrickson, who's the Director of the Department of Gender Affairs in Nevis. We'll then move on to a personal story from Nayoka Gums, who's a community health advocate. We'll then move on to a policymaker panel discussion featuring representatives from the Department of Gender Affairs, Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Human Resources. We'll follow that with a Q&A so that you can ask any questions to the panelists. We'll then move on to a civil society panel, and that will feature representatives from a range of civil society organizations from across the region. We'll follow that with a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up and close. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Honorable Jahnel Nisbett, who is the Minister of Health, Gender Affairs and Social Empowerment at the Nevis Island Administration. And we're very grateful, Minister, for you being here today. We know that you have a very busy schedule, and so we're very grateful. So over to you.
Thank you, Abby. It's always such a pleasure to be part of these discussions. So I want to, first of all, say good evening to everyone who's joining us locally, regionally, across the globe for this very timely conversation on Menstrual Hygiene Day. I think we can understand that this is an issue that affects half the population at some point or the other in our lives, but it's often secluded and discussed in silence, discussed in secret, almost like we have our own little secret society for this topic. But this is what forum such as this is here to shed light on. And so I'm really happy to be able to support this activity through the Department of Gender Affairs. I sometimes joke about when we go to purchase these items in the supermarket. It's always been an interesting experience for me. You go and you purchase the items and you make it to the cashier, and then they're always packaged secretly into a brown paper bag, almost like a nefarious drug deal of some sort. And this just really highlights how we look at menstruation as if it's something that's meant to be hidden, when it's really something normalize conversations about this very natural experience. I think one of the other issues or point of note that I like to put forward is that I believe truly that if menstruation was something experienced by men, it would probably, the supplies would be free at this point in time. We would have them in every restroom, we'd have them everywhere we go. And so those are conversations that we have to have about making these sanitary products more accessible to all individuals as well. I really like to highlight, there's one restaurant in particular here on Nevis. I really love to highlight them. It's the Yachtsman Grill, because every time I go into their restroom, they've made a point of having an array of sanitary products just for any of their patrons at any given time, whether it's their patrons or their staff. And I think that's a culture that we have to promote, because these are essential items that you may or may not always have on you, and some individuals may or may not be able to afford at any given time. So those are some of the issues that I really would like us to continue to highlight and talk about, making accessibility a right for everyone. I'm extremely proud as well of the work that's been done by the Department of Gender Affairs here in Nevis. And a lot of it is in collaboration with Lake Health and many different organizations. And we've really been putting in the work here on the island to increase and sensitize our children, both boys and girls, in terms of menstrual health. So we've had several sessions across our primary and secondary schools. I believe since 2023, we would have begun our program. We've had at least 46 menstrual health sessions, and we've reached students in the hundreds. We've been able to train parents, we've been able to train menstrual health educators, guidance counselors, and even some of our sports coaches. And I think this is essential because if you look at sports, for instance, we see a lot of our girls drifting quietly away from sports as they go through puberty. And we're now equipping these coaches with the right tools to be able to support our girls, to perhaps maybe encourage them to stay in these fields. What we've also begun doing, we've managed to do it right now in 3 of our schools. We've installed dispensers in these schools so that students are able to access sanitary products when they are in need as well, because we understand that access is one of the core aspect of menstrual hygiene in the first place. So ultimately, we just want to continue to encourage the conversations and practical actions to support menstrual TikTok trend where women were sending their partners out to buy them pads with wings just to see what the men would bring back. And often the men would buy a pack of pads and come back with some chicken wings as well. So I think the education aspect for both boys and girls is essential to ensure that our boys become men who know how to understand and support the women in our society as well. Because this having a menstrual cycle is as natural as it gets. So I want to support this conversation and encourage us all to never stop advocating for equality and just general conversations to continue. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to the discussions this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Honorable Nisbett, for your remarks. We really appreciate it. And, we appreciate your time. You're very busy, so we really do appreciate your time and your remarks. So now I'm going to hand over to Saris Hendrickson. Saris is the Director of Gender Affairs in Nevis, and she's going to set the scene for us with the introductory presentation. So over to you, Saris.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Minister Nisbett, for your remarks. I am excited to be here to share with you just a brief introduction as to why we must have a period-friendly space. I'm going to share my screen. Abby, if you could please let me know if you're seeing my screen shortly. One moment. Are you seeing it? Yes?
Almost. It's getting there. Almost.
Okay.
It's just opening up.
We're there. Are we good?
Okay, we're seeing it now.
Okay, good. All right, great. All right, so just a few minutes of your time so I can walk you through why we need to have a period-friendly space. Like my minister shared, we have been working with Lake Health Wellbeing since 2023. We are supported by various agencies. UNICEF would be one of those, WASH United, the Advancement of Children Fund, the Ministry of Health, Gender Affairs and Social Empowerment of Nevis Island Administration, and also the Ministry of Education, Nevis Island Administration. One moment. Right. Okay, so we need to first establish what is a period-friendly space, and you're going to see various themes coming out throughout this discussion we're going to have this evening. And I've taken this definition from menstrualhygieneday.org, and it reads, a period-friendly world is one in which menstruation is accepted they have to be hygienic. There have to be period-friendly toilets, and there has to be a good supply of water. And also there has to be menstrual health services that are available to our menstruators. We also have to ensure that the quality of life of our women and girls, it cannot be disrupted because she's a menstruator. These are what makes a space period friendly. And if you look within these photos, what you're seeing here are various sessions that we've had here on Department of Gender Affairs on Nevis, where we have girls just simply learn conversations about this biological process of menstruation, asking the questions, getting informed information that is supported by data. We also have another picture here that shows our girls learning to make pads, make their reusable pads, their cloth pads. And this young lady here, she, at that time, she was in grade 6 at a primary school here. And one of these pictures, it shows a conversation between an older female and a younger girl, where throughout this discussion, you find that this older woman, she's sharing her experience she's had while she was a younger girl, growing up on Nevis. And through this learning environment, we have girls that are able to openly express themselves and really ask the questions as to what is happening to their bodies. Why does it matter? So what the data shows, and most of this data would have come from World Bank website, UN and UNICEF, and it would have stated here that menstruation affects at least 50% of the population. 20 to 40% experience PMS symptoms impacting their well-being. 50 million people globally lack adequate menstrual health services. It is critical to have these spaces where women can feel safe and menstruate with care, menstruate with the right information, and have all the services that are there to ensure that they have the evidence-based information. They have the facilities, they have the supportive group where they can really ask these questions and get the answers. What's happening in Nevis? Why period-friendly spaces are necessary? Through the menstrual health management project, we would have visited various schools on Nevis. My minister would have given you some data on that. And within these educational sessions, we are able to ascertain how many girls actually had free access to menstrual products at the schools. And what was happening at that time is that the schools, they would buy the products and they would store them in an office space. We would have observed that there are some schools that have clean, safe private toilets. There are those that have the waste bins, but generally there wasn't a menstrual health education project or program or curriculum available. So through the partnership with Lake Health and Wellbeing and the partners which I mentioned before, we're able to offer comprehensive menstrual health education to girls and boys through storytelling of a booklet called Sharice's World, which is also done in partnership with Watch United. We also would have seen that health education is necessary for teachers, for the guidance counselors within these schools. And I must say that they have done an exceptional job in ensuring to collaborate with the Department of Gender Affairs to ensure that we are able to send this messaging out to our girls and boys. And in doing so, that reduces the stigma through these open conversations. And I have to tell you that these children, they have a lot of questions. I keep telling Abby this, they have a lot of questions, and we have to be equipped with the right information so we can steer these children. As we continue with what's happening on Nevis, we would have donated 3 dispensers, pad dispensers. This picture here shows one girl from school here as she's operating that dispenser. And this school, I have to give kudos to this school. This is Gingerland Secondary School. And I've said this on many platforms. When you go into this bathroom facility, you would want to stay there because it is comfortable. The administration is doing a fantastic job when it comes to supporting the menstrual health management program and also to ensure that the bathroom facilities are clean and they're comfortable. And in doing so, the girls, they're able to go freely and access free pads. And I think this is absolutely noteworthy. They would access these free pads, and adjacent to where this dispenser is a bathroom area. So it's really done in privacy, and that really helps to ensure that there's no shame in going through this biological process. In doing that, around what a period is, initial conversation with these girls is that on the onset of their menarche, they thought they were dying. They didn't understand what was happening to their bodies. There wasn't anyone close by whom they think that they could trust that would give them that information. So yes, you would have cases where girls would perhaps hide her menstrual experience. So that is something that we are trying our best to intervene. We also continue to train men and boys, and the boys, they're just as inquisitive as our girls. In fact, I would say more inquisitive, those that we've met so far. And in doing that, we encourage them to be empathetic. We encourage them to be compassionate, to be supportive, and understand that this is really a partnership. We teach girls to manage that process, but we also teach boys and train them. They have to be supportive with their female counterparts. So having this period-friendly space is ensuring that girls, they have agency as to what happens to their bodies and how they can master the language around what's happening to their bodies. And with boys, they're also part of that supportive environment to ensure that the girls do feel safe and